Welcome back to CBS Sports HQ, presented by Neutral. The Final Four stage is set. UConn, the betting favorites to win it all, but they got to get through the Canes. Miami, 5.5-point dogs in that matchup. The other game, the 9-seed Florida Atlantic, taking on the 5-seed San Diego State. SDSU favored at -2. Let's bring in our betting expert, Todd Fuhrman, to help us make some money on the Final Four. What's better than that? We're going to start off with FAU and San Diego State. We got the 9-seed versus the 5-seed SDSU favored. We just saw it there at -2. This total now at 132. What do you like in this spot?
Well, it's so interesting, Jacqueline, because obviously when we were all filling out our brackets a few short weeks ago, these were exactly the two teams we thought were going to be vying for a seat at the table in the national championship on Monday. But here we are with two teams, though, that are very deserving. When you look at the full body of work for Florida Atlantic this season, it's not a fluke that despite being a 9-seed, Dusty May's team is playing their best basketball when it matters most, going out there, taking no prisoners, and finding a way to do it on both the offensive and defensive end. Meanwhile, on the other side, Brian Dutcher's team has been an absolute nightmare to play against, suffocating you at every turn. And rather than trying to pick a side in terms of who I think comes out of this game with a victory, I'm more willing to go after the total. And you can see there right on that graphic that betting unders in San Diego State games over the last 10-plus contests has been extremely profitable. And I'm not sure that train gets derailed this weekend. When we look at San Diego State, one of the best teams in the country when it comes to defending the perimeter, and knowing that Florida Atlantic relies so much on their perimeter game, getting nearly 38% of their offense from beyond the arc, I think that could pose a problem. This is an extremely athletic Aztec bunch who is playing with a little bit of house money, but they have been the gold standard in the Mountain West in the past, and they draw yet another team from a mid-major conference. I think their length and athleticism on the perimeter is going to make life difficult. They're going to turn this thing into a rock fight. And the other thing that we have working in our favor is playing in a large cavernous venue where we know shooting backdrops can often be problematic. I'll look to go under the total between FAU and San Diego State.
Yeah, we just saw that graphic there. For San Diego State, the under has hit in 12 straight games. The other matchup, Miami and UConn, we know the Huskies are favored at -5.5. Miami 7-1 against the spread in the last two NCAA tournaments. UConn 4-0 against the spread this go around. What's your play on this one, Todd?
Who knew that down in Coral Gables they were building a basketball juggernaut, whereas they'd give everything they could to make a football team that was nearly this relevant. But here we are with Jim Laranaga's team, led by a veteran core of guards, exceeding odds makers' expectations multiple times this big dance. And we've seen Miami raise their level of play when it matters most. It was an improbable run against Drake in the closing 5 minutes that was able to let them get through their first round game. And we saw a similar dynamic unfold against Texas, where they outscored the Longhorns 30-14. But in steps a UConn team that's got the best point differential of any of the four remaining teams when you look at their second half performances. But this is a big dance driven by guard play, and I think Miami is going to be a very pesky out for the UConn Huskies. It's crazy to think about us talking about an ACC regular season champion being a Cinderella in the Final Four, but that's exactly what we have here when you consider the fact that Miami has now been underdogs in 3 straight games. Look, the Hurricanes don't wow you with anything they do from a defensive efficiency standpoint outside the top 100, but what they do offensively is what's made them so dangerous. We know that they can get to the foul line, and I think the biggest thing that we're going to watch in this game, if Miami's going to have a chance to pull off the outright upset, is being able to drive at Adama Sanogo in the paint, maybe get him into foul trouble early. I know UConn's extremely deep, but if they can get the big fella on the bench in foul trouble, that creates a path to victory. This number just felt a little bit rich for me. I'll take Miami plus the points and think this comes down to the final possession or two.
All right, let's talk about the best first half play. And for this one, you like the FAU-SDSU matchup, Todd.
We'll go right back to the full game total that we made a case for earlier. I think you could see a little bit of jitters here. We saw shooting drastically improve in the round of 16 and the round of 8 compared to what we saw in the opening 2 rounds, which fortunately gives us a little bit of value to go under the total here. Neither one of these teams will hesitate to try and recycle the ball, take long, drawn-out possessions, and we've seen San Diego State so far this tournament really lock down opponents. FAU struggled in the first half, adjusting to the physicality of Tennessee, and that game got to the break with barely 50 points scored. I think you could see a rinse and repeat type scenario unfold here, so I'm more than happy to go under a total in the low 60s between the Owls and Aztecs.
And Todd, when it comes to the best team total play, you like FAU under 65. Tell us why.
It's more rinse and repeat here with San Diego State holding a lot of the teams that they've faced so far in this big dance to season lows. And when we look at San Diego State's path to get to this point, you went through College of Charleston, you went through Furman, you did have to knock off the #1 overall seed in Alabama, but they were able to completely stymie a Creighton team from an offensive efficiency standpoint that had been electric coming up to it. Now, when you're looking at games with a total this low, especially a team total, you'd like to see the officials let them play, and that's the only thing that would make me slightly apprehensive here, because if there is a tight whistle, Florida Atlantic more than capable of getting to the foul line, taking advantage of those freebies. But I think we could see something similar to what we saw last weekend, where San Diego State used their physicality, athleticism, they move their feet as well as anybody on the defensive end, and I think it could slow the Owls' offensive attack down a bit.
All right, let's talk about who's going to win it all. UConn, they've got 4 national titles in program history. They're going to their 6th Final Four. Miami, FAU, San Diego State, they're all first-timers that are there. UConn, obviously the betting favorite to win it all. Todd, who is your pick to win the national championship in Houston?
So looking at the numbers here, look, I'm not going to split the atom by any stretch. UConn is the best team, and if UConn is at their absolute best over the course of Saturday's contest against Miami and whoever they played on Monday, they'll cut down the nets. But we've seen UConn perform at a level that I'm not quite sure is sustainable. They've boat raced each of their first 4 opponents, and in steps a Miami team that is going to be more than comfortable if it's a 1-possession game late. So virtue of that, I think Miami offers the best value at plus 450, because if the Canes are able to pull off an upset against UConn, I'd make them a short favorite over whoever emerges from the other semifinal. And by virtue of that, a money line rollover doesn't pay nearly as much as what betting them outright in the futures market does. So look, do I think UConn wins the national title? Yes. But I think from an odds perspective, Miami is a little bit mispriced, so the Hurricanes would be who I was willing to put my money on as far as the futures market was concerned.
Yeah, you can get the Canes at plus 450. Miami was plus 7,500 to win going into the tournament. All right, that is our wagering expert, Todd Fuhrman, joining us here on HQ, giving us his final 4 plays. Thanks so much, Todd. We appreciate it. And let's quickly recap Todd's picks. For FAU, SDSU, he likes the under 132 there. Florida Atlantic under team total 65. And then for the best value to win the title, he's going with Miami at plus 450.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.